Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the Cyber TV Risk Studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Mike Shima, and joining me for this interview is Mark Lambert, Chief Product Officer at ArmorCode. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me.
So happy to have you here and spend a Tuesday afternoon talking about AI and Anya in particular. So just as a quick setup, I have a background talking to lots of human security champions.
Yes.
It's always been pleasant conversations with them. Why should I talk to Anya now?
That's a great question, especially because like everybody's talking about AI this week, right? I mean, it really is evident in the industry. So kind of like what is Anya and why is it important? How is it changing things? So really, if you think about it this way, as you're a security practitioner, you're working within lots of dashboards, reports, tables, lots of manual interactions, kind of like looking at the data. So you spend a lot of time crafting a dashboard, and then your CISO looks at the dashboard and goes, why is that risk score 600 when yesterday it was 300?
You don't want surprises.
No, you don't. So what do you now have to do? You now have to go in and start interpreting the data, digging around, figuring out what happened over the last 7 days, preparing a summary, and then if there's an incident, then you're going to have to prepare another email that the CISO can share with the board. What if an AI could just do all of that for you? So this was the genesis idea for Anya. And while dashboards and reports and kind of like human interactions and automation scripts, these are all going to be staples for the industry, Anya really revolutionizes and changes the way that we work with that data. And this didn't happen overnight. This was based upon research over the last couple of years, things that we've released over the course of last year as well.
Well, already I'm starting to feel I'm getting some compelling use here, some value. Just it sounds like it's saving me time.
Oh, yeah.
So I would definitely want to come back to that in a second, but you mentioned too, this is not, you didn't just do this last week.
Yeah.
And a lot of a promise of AI is that you need to train it so it can see something that it's seen before, can evaluate that rather than this is new and I'll just make something up. So what did that look like to train it and that scope of that data?
Sure. So at ArmorCode, we often talk about our 3 Vs. This is what provides the foundation for our AI. That's volume. So we actually process over 100 million findings a day. So that's over 3 billion findings a month. Variety. So we're actually ingesting data from over 285 different sources. That's everything from threat intelligence and threat modeling all the way through application security, cloud, container, traditional endpoint, and we're bringing all of that data into our platform and enabling our community of over 3,500 security practitioners that are supporting over 175,000 developers. So those 3 Vs provide a very solid foundation for us to develop true, meaningful, and valuable AI capabilities. This time last year at RSA, we introduced AI correlation, which was a supervised machine learning models that would connect together data from different scan types. So for example, taking software composition analysis data from a sneak and correlating that with a Trivy container security, for example, and connecting those 2 things together to say, hey, they're kind of the same underlying issue, so we're gonna identify the unique elements and then kind of ignore or mark the others as duplicates. We then, at Black Hat last year, introduced our AI remediation that was an LLM, or is an LLM model, pre-trained on vulnerabilities and weaknesses, to again, shortcut the time to figure out what to do to fix something. So, I might be able to update a library, but maybe I can't update it. What preventative controls can I put in place? Gotcha. That correlation, helping the root cause, that remediation, what do I need to do? We then brought those 2 things together in November last year to give you concise descriptions of remediation actions and remediation groups, basically where to do the work and what work to do. This was all the foundation for what we then started building Anya on top of.
And again, that to me sounds like this is a champion who's helpful in the sense of you, a developer, or me as a developer, you need to get your job done.
Yep.
What do I need to fix, rather than what are the intricacies of the OWASP top 10? And can be a little bit distracting. There's a time and place perhaps, but I appreciate that you mentioned too, like machine learning. There are obviously flavors of AI out there. Yep. So how do I use this? Is this is this agentic AI? Is this an MCP that I have local? How am I interacting with this security champion?
So what Anya is, and we do refer to Anya as the virtual security champion. It is a natural language interface. As you're working within the platform, you can call Anya up just generically within the platform and ask a general question about the data that is presented to you. So we have full RBAC control within the system, so you're only seeing the data responsible for your part of the application portfolio. I'm seeing the data that I'm responsible possible for. So you can call up Anya from anywhere, or you can call Anya up from within widgets within the dashboard. Okay. That gives it additional context. So you're saying, okay, you're asking a question about this widget. Anya is immediately prompted with that. Then it goes through 4 steps. The first thing is evaluating the question that you're asking, either just natural language interface or through that context of the widget. It then converts that into queries that are executed against the data model, retrieves the data from the data model, evaluates it, and then synthesizes it using an LLM to actually bring all of that data together in a human readable form. She takes into account the persona that you have. You can fully customize my prompt that is defining how I want information to be presented to me. And then she's agentic in that she will actually perform automation tasks for you. So things like, okay, what are my most risky findings? Do we have log4j in the place? Which teams are impacted? Create tickets for those teams, notify those teams, notify them on a weekly basis until those issues are resolved. These are the kind of things that Anya can do for you rather than you having to do that manual work yourself.
Tell me a little bit more about that help of just, do I have to fix everything? Because one of the traps that I've seen that will drive me crazy is, here are all the vulns, go fix them all. That's just a terrible conversation, it's a terrible strategy, and it just doesn't work. You're not going to get any friends that way.
Yeah.
How does using this agent help you with that prioritization? Do you have some examples of that?
Yeah, sure. And in fact, actually, the next level of non-working is to say, fix all the critical severity issues. That also doesn't work. Yeah. So what we do at ArmorCode is when we're ingesting the data into the platform, we apply our risk scoring model to it, which is actually a combination of technical risk, which is, in the case of a CVE, for example, leveraging threat intelligence. Sure. So if it's a critical severity finding, but it's never been exploited, do I really need to fix it right now? Probably not, okay? Yes. So we'll leverage threat intelligence to augment that. Secondarily, we will also take the business impact. So if that same finding that is actually exploited and it's on a critical part of my business that's processing payments, for example, versus a back-end data sciences application, which one do I need to fix first, okay? And what we found is that prioritization helps the organization be a lot more efficient. So a mixture of the correlation to focus down and identify the uniqueness, and then furthermore using the risk scoring to identify the most criticals. But then that threat context provides the development team the reason why. Okay, yes, you need to fix this because there are exploits.
Yeah. One of the challenges there is also like the AIs don't suddenly introduce, you magically now have an asset inventory or a software asset inventory, or everything has a business context behind it. How have you seen organizations, I think that organizations still struggle with that, AI or not. This is a classic problem. Yep. Is this helping, or how does the agent learn, or how does it make sure it gets a context for my org rather than just generic org, for example?
Sure, and not every answer has to be AI. Okay, so typically what we find is that many organizations have inventory sources. They're just not very well maintained, and they're not very consistent. Yes. So the thing that we do at ArmorCode is we're ingesting all of the data, not just the vulnerability data and the finding data from the scanners, but also asset inventories from like CMDBs, chasms, even some of the vulnerability management tools themselves will have asset inventories also. We're bringing that data into the platform. We're then correlating that across the scanners. So for example, maybe I've got some data that's inside of my ServiceNow CMDB. I've got an asset inventory there. I'm scanning with Tenable, but I should be scanning with Qualys and it's not picking that up. Or maybe I've got some scanners that are duplicating, overlapping on the different resources. We're able to start providing that level of visibility. The key is really that connective tissue of how do I get the asset inventory and generate that from these different sources and then unify it within the platform along with the vulnerability data. And
I think that was a point too, that, or a subtler part of that point was that you're not a scanner, right? You're
100%.
That layer above, just taking in that context and exploiting that context, if you will, for the good. Right?
And that's really where that foundation of the integrations with 285 scanners comes in. I mean, really, there are so many scanners in the industry today, and they work better in different scenarios. So many organizations will use, you can't just use one vendor to be able to do your application security and all your cloud security. It just doesn't actually work. Right. So, and even some teams will find that the different scanners work better in their environment when you start looking at AppSec, for example. Some organizations will move towards GitHub Advanced Security because it's actually easier to adopt than some of the traditional scanners, but maybe not as accurate. So we can leverage different technologies and bring them together. And really, we're very, very focused at ArmorCode of being that independent governance layer sitting on top of not just application security, but also the vulnerability management and the software supply chain. Because this concept of application security posture management, it's not just the code. It's where it's deployed, and it's the code that you're using as well.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to go back too, because you talked about the CISO sees a dashboard, something changes, asking why, what happened. They're obviously not the only user of this. And you did mention about fixing code, and there's the AppSec of security champion. It sounds like an AppSec role, or maybe AppSec adjacent role. Who's using this? How are they interacting with it? Is it that developers? Is it AppSec?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So what we talk about often is there are really three types of persona that use the platform. Our primary persona would be the application security or the cyber security security engineer who's in there working with the findings and the vulnerabilities and figuring out what's going on, and then assigning those to the development team potentially for remediation. Now, the developer is also a user of the platform, but not typically a direct user. They're not always logging into the platform. In most cases, they're living in Jira. So we will create tickets out of ArmorCode into Jira, and then we have a plugin for Jira that enables them to perform actions directly within Jira that are actually representing workflows inside of ArmorCode. So this kind of keeping them in the area where they're already working, because you don't want to disrupt their flow and their planning.
Thank you.
And then the third persona is the leadership, either CISO, security leadership, or development leadership as well. Also able to get customized dashboards that are in the platform and the insights that Anya provides.
Now, part of what you were telling us too is what ArmorCode was doing last year at Black Hat as well. If we roll ahead to next year's RSA, or maybe even a little bit more in the future, how do you see this virtual security champion unfolding?
Sure, and there is one of the things we do at ArmorCode, which is one of the things I love, is we deliver innovation fast. So we actually have weekly releases. I do a monthly product webinar with the community. So actually, our next future is actually next month. So we're going to be talking about our AI Code Insights next month, which is where we're doing cloud to code correlation. We're doing code repo classification, so we can start to detect what's inside the code repository, so security teams can put better controls and risk posture in place, as well as material code changes for detecting for PCI compliance and things like that. So these are all of the things that kind of we're working on in the near term. But the thing that really excites me about kind of like this wave of AI, I was involved in the prior wave of AI as well, it's the potential. It's the potential for what the technology is able to do, and it truly is limitless. And that's actually what Anya means in Sanskrit. That's actually how we got to the name of Anya. Okay. So if I fast forward to this time next year, I think what we'll be looking at further is more autonomy from the point of view of the agent, more managing the agent almost like a team member to a certain extent. I don't think we'll ever get to the point where you just fully trust that your agent is going to, hey, we don't need security engineers.
Sounds a little sketchy,
But I think really, truly driving down that mean time to remediation, optimizing, removing the drudgery, I think that's kind of like the thing that we'll be hearing even more about next year as we look to RSA next year.
And that sounds, again, my favorite word of the day is compelling, because this is saving me time, saving developers time is where the value comes, not just here are 2 letters called AI that we think is going to help you.
Yes.
And you also mentioned too that it's RBAC. It's working through your own permissions. So what are there other considerations that you had putting this together to be like, we don't want another security tool to increase our security attack surface? That's always a terrible thing.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, we're very fortunate. We work with some phenomenal organizations, but we're in security, so we have to take a security first approach. So what we didn't just do is just bolt on Anya using a ChatGPT interface. We also didn't just go, hey, let's point Anya at the documentation and give some of the ability to navigate the documentation. We thought we went to the community and we said, hey, we've done correlation, we've done remediation. What's the next thing that you need to do? And that's how Anya came to be. But when we look at how we deploy, it's all contained within the ArmorCode environment. The instances of the LLMs are instantiated based upon your tenant, your role. They're segmented. They actually get destroyed afterwards. So we've taken a very security-first approach. We're leveraging AWS Bedrock. All of those kind of things that you would expect.
That's all. It sounds like you're going to have to add to those 3 V's, the 3 C's of that community communication. And,
yes. We do like our 3 letters. So yes.
Well, I've very much enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you everyone else for joining us. To find out more about ArmorCode, please visit securityweekly.com/ArmorCode RSAC. For all RSAC, we got through the C in there, 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thanks again, Mark. Thank you for everyone else. We'll stick around because we'll be back after the break with some more interviews live from RSAC Conference 2025.